The night was thick with darkness, curling around the edges of an old, abandoned house at the village's edge. Four friends, Ritu, Mimi, Sojal, and Tuhin, stood outside, shivering with excitement. The house had been empty for decades, windows shattered, walls choked with ivy, and the air smelled of damp earth and decayed wood. Even in daylight, the house looked menacing. Tonight, under the moonlight, it looked alive. "Let's start, I'll hide first," Ritu said with a grin, but her voice trembled slightly. They all laughed, trying to brush off the unease that crept into their chests. Mimi tugged at her sleeve. "Are you sure this is safe? Everyone says no one goes inside after dusk," she murmured. But the others teased her, calling her scared. The game began. Ritu darted through the front door, disappearing into the darkness inside. The wooden floor creaked underfoot, echoing strangely. Mimi, Sojal, and Tuhin fanned out, finding hiding spots in the gloomy corners. At first, it was normal, giggles and whispers, the thrill of being unseen. But then came the first sign that something was wrong. From the shadows, they heard soft footsteps that didn't belong to any of them. Ritu, hidden behind a rotting door, pressed her back against the wall. Her heart raced. A cold draft passed over her neck, almost like fingers brushing against her skin. She held her breath, staring at a dark corner that seemed alive. She thought, "It's just my imagination. It has to be." Mimi had found a hiding spot under a staircase, clutching her knees. Then she felt it, a pressure, a presence that wasn't there before. Her foot brushed something cold, solid. She froze. A whisper, inaudible yet clear, seemed to echo in her mind. "You shouldn't be here." She tried to move, but her body felt paralyzed. Sojal and Tuhin were searching, unaware of the subtle changes in the house. Every hallway now felt different, longer, twisted. Doors they remembered weren't in the same place. Shadows moved in ways they shouldn't. Tuhin peered through a broken window and thought he saw a figure, tall and thin, gliding silently toward him. He blinked and it was gone. The first scream tore through the silence. Ritu's voice echoed off the walls. "I've been found." But when the others rushed to her last known hiding place, there was nothing. No footprints, no sign that anyone had been there. Only the faint smell of decay lingered, stronger than before. As minutes passed, the laughter faded, replaced by a sinking, heavy fear. The house wasn't just a backdrop for a game anymore. It was a trap. Every shadow seemed to watch, every creak of the floor a threat. The friends realized the game had shifted. They were no longer playing hide and seek, they were being hunted. A soft, almost imperceptible humming sound began to echo, coming from somewhere deep within the walls. It was melodic yet sinister, like someone calling to them, but they couldn't understand the words. Mimi clutched Sojal's arm. We need to get out," she whispered. But no matter which door they ran toward, the layout twisted again. Hallways stretched, windows vanished, and rooms led into rooms that shouldn't exist. The air grew colder. Their breaths formed clouds in front of them. Then out of the corner of her eye, Mimi saw it, a shadow with no face gliding along the wall. It moved like water, fluid yet purposeful, and she could feel its gaze on her. She couldn't scream. She couldn't run. The shadow seemed to feed on her fear, growing larger, darker. The friends regrouped in a central hallway, backs pressed against a cracked wall. Their eyes darted, trying to catch a glimpse of the other, impossible shadows that slithered behind corners, disappeared into the darkness, and returned closer than they should be. Sojal's hand shook as he tried to grab the door handle. Every handle felt icy, almost alive, pulsing under his fingers. Time stopped, or perhaps it didn't exist anymore. The friends didn't know how long they had been trapped inside. Each passing second stretched endlessly, and the shadows grew bolder. They were no longer silhouettes. They seemed to take shape, hints of humanoid forms appearing, then vanishing into smoke. Ritu's voice broke the tension. "There's a way out, I saw it before." But as they ran toward the stairs, the steps stretched infinitely ahead of them. Each step felt heavier, the air thicker. The house was swallowing them, consuming their courage. A whisper came again, this time distinctly in Tuhin's ear. "You cannot leave." He turned, and the shadow faced him, towering over him with empty, hollow eyes. A chill ran through his spine. It didn't move like a human, yet it mirrored his fear perfectly. The others froze, staring at their own reflections in the darkness. The house had learned them, knew their every thought, every heartbeat. The shadows pressed closer as the friends stumbled forward. Each corner they turned seemed endless, a looping maze where doors led nowhere and hallways folded upon themselves. Mimi's chest heaved as she tried to breathe normally, but the air was thick, almost alive, carrying whispers of unseen voices that taunted them. Sojal grabbed a piece of broken wood from the floor, holding it like a weapon, though he knew deep down it could do nothing. "We have to stick together," he whispered, but even his own voice felt swallowed by the oppressive darkness. Ritu was leading, her hand brushing over walls covered in mold and cracks, each touch sending shivers down her spine. Then the floor beneath Tuhin creaked loudly, and suddenly a shadow shot past him, disappearing into the ceiling. He froze, unable to comprehend what he had just seen. Did anyone else see that?" he asked, voice trembling. The others nodded silently, eyes wide with terror. A strange humming returned, louder now, vibrating through the walls and the floor. It wasn't a song or music. It was a presence, almost breathing, almost alive. Ritu's mind screamed at her to run, yet her legs refused to obey. Mimi felt something brush against her arm, soft, cold, almost tender, and yet she knew it was malevolent. Suddenly, the shadows converged in the center of the hallway, forming something almost human, almost monstrous. They had faces, blank, featureless, yet horrifyingly expressive in the way they mirrored fear. The friends froze, unable to scream, unable to move, their own terror feeding the shape in front of them. Tuhin whispered, "We need to move now." They shuffled together, inching backward, trying to escape. But the hallway twisted again, folding in on itself, doors appearing where there were none, windows vanishing before their eyes. The house was alive. It was playing with them. A sudden cold wind swept through, extinguishing the faint moonlight filtering in through broken windows. In that darkness, they could see shapes moving closer, long, thin shadows stretching unnaturally, creeping along the walls like they had no bones. Mimi tripped and fell, and when she looked up, a shadow loomed directly over her, stretching toward her like liquid smoke. Sojal lunged, grabbing her arm, pulling her up. The shadow recoiled like it had been denied a victim. "Keep going, don't look back," he shouted, though their own hearts beat deafeningly in their ears. They stumbled into a large room filled with broken furniture. Dust floated in the air, catching faint moonlight. In the center, a circle of cold darkness swirled, almost like a portal. And then they realized, inside the circle, they could see fleeting glimpses of themselves, moving differently, trapped in some unseen loop. Ritu swallowed hard, realizing that the house was showing them visions of their own fear. Each misstep, each glance backward was feeding something older, stronger than the four of them combined. A whisper came from nowhere and yet everywhere. "You cannot leave." The friends ran blindly, the house changing with every step. Stairs stretched impossibly, doors led to rooms that didn't exist, and the shadows never let them rest. Mimi's scream echoed endlessly, a haunting melody that seemed to encourage the darkness rather than silence it. A shadow reached out, brushing Tuhin's face, and he fell to his knees, gasping. The other three tried to help him, but it was as if the shadows were a living web, holding them in place, testing their panic. And yet something strange happened. The more they tried to fight fear, the more the shadows hesitated. Ritu whispered, maybe if we don't run, if we don't fear, we can outsmart it." The others nodded weakly, understanding the impossible gamble. They slowed their steps, facing the shadows calmly, though their hearts raced, their faces pale. The shadows paused. The silence was almost worse than the chaos. And then in a flash of faint moonlight they saw it. A door. Not warped, not twisted. Just a plain wooden door, slightly ajar with the faint glow of dawn beyond it. They sprinted. Every shadow lunged, but somehow, the calmness, the refusal to give in to panic seemed to give them an edge. Ritu, Mimi, Sojal, and Tuhin burst through the door into the cold morning light. The house loomed behind them, silent still, and yet alive in its own invisible way. The friends collapsed on the grass, gasping, trembling. The dawn broke over the village, and the house looked like any ordinary abandoned structure again. No shadows moved. No whispers called out. Only the wind carried a soft sigh, as if the house had exhaled, patient and satisfied for now. Ritu looked back one last time. We survived, but I know it's still there, watching, waiting. Mimi shivered. We'll never play hide and seek like that again. But deep down, all four of them knew. The shadows weren't gone. They had only let the frightened humans go, and they would be ready, patient, for the next night when curiosity outweighed caution. Even as they walked away, the house seemed to pulse faintly in the corner of their vision. And sometimes when the wind whistled just right, they could hear faint whispers, calling their names, inviting them back to the shadows. The friends lay on the grass trying to catch their breath, but sleep or peace wouldn't come. Every sound, a crow cawing, the wind rustling leaves, made their hearts jump. Even the daylight felt wrong, stretched and hazy, as if the house had left its mark on the world outside. "So it's over?" Tuhin asked, voice shaky. But Ritu didn't answer. Her eyes were fixed on the house, which now looked like an ordinary ruin in the morning light. Yet she could feel it, the presence that had followed them, hiding behind broken walls, waiting patiently. It was still alive. Mimi shivered. "I feel like it's watching us, even now." Her words barely left her lips when a faint shadow flickered across the broken window. They all froze. The wind blew, but the shadow didn't move with the natural flow. It had a mind of its own, lingering, observing. Sojal swallowed hard. We can't let anyone know about this. No one will believe us anyway." But deep down, they knew. Everyone who dared step near that house would be a target, and now the house had claimed them, not with death, but with a memory, a mark, a knowledge of the things that lurked in the dark. Ritu finally spoke, voice trembling. "We played the game. We survived, yes, but it saw us, tested us, fed on our fear. And it's patient. It can wait years, decades, it doesn't care." A strange silence fell. Even the birds seemed to hesitate, as if they too were afraid. The friends slowly began walking back toward the village, their steps heavy, their eyes darting behind them at every possible movement. Every rustle of leaves, every flicker of light reminded them of the shadows. Days passed, but the memory wouldn't fade. At night, Ritu would see flickers of darkness moving in her peripheral vision. Mimi would feel cold fingers brushing her arm while sleeping. Sojal would hear faint whispers, murmuring his name through the walls of his room. Tuhin could almost sense the shadows, shapes lingering at the edge of every doorway, every alley he passed. It became clear they had not escaped entirely. The house had left something inside them, a tether. And now, every time they gathered, every time they joked about the night, the shadows responded. Small things. A door creaking when no one was near, lights flickering, objects moving slightly, as if testing their courage again. Weeks later, curiosity got the better of them. They had to know if it was truly gone. They approached the house cautiously, each step shaking with both fear and fascination. The house loomed silent, seemingly inert. But as they stepped closer, the air thickened and that same chilling hum returned. It was welcoming them back, not with malice, but with a hunger for play. Ritu stepped forward. The ground seemed softer here, almost sponge-like underfoot. Shadows in the corners flickered, darting, stretching, growing. The wind shifted in unnatural ways, carrying faint whispers that they could almost understand. "Come back, play again, don't fear." Mimi grabbed Ritu's hand. We should never come back. It's not a game anymore. It's something else, something older." But the house had changed them. Fear was no longer the only emotion. Part of them, the smallest, quietest part, was drawn to it. The shadows seemed to call to that part, coaxing them with an impossible allure. They could not shake it completely, could not run entirely. The friends finally turned and left, running through the grass, leaving the house behind. Dawn broke fully now, washing the landscape in pale light. Yet as they glanced back one final time, they saw it. a faint, dark ripple moving across the front windows. The house was breathing, waiting, patient, eternal, immortal. From that day on, the friends never spoke of the game again, but in the silence of their homes, in the pauses between heartbeats, they could feel the shadows just out of sight, watching, always watching. And sometimes when the wind whistled through the village, it sounded like laughter, low, cold, and playful, reminding them that hide and seek was never truly over. The house waits, the shadows wait, and somewhere in the dark a voice whispers, "Next time it will find you first."